Okay. Good evening and welcome to the City Commission work session. We are all virtual today. It is Wednesday, October 16th. And Mr. Wiley, would you do the roll call?
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith
Is excused.
absent. Is excused.
Yes.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. So tonight we have one item of business. It is the adaptive reuse discussion, and I will turn that over to City Manager Conkle and Mr. Graham.
All right, so thank you. Good evening, everybody. So tonight we're bringing back the adaptive reuse building rehabilitation program. And I'm going to turn this over to James here in a second. I think just a couple of things as we're working through this. We believe we've incorporated the comments from our last meeting. And then I think part of this is then talking about, if this is something that we want to do, setting the funding level, and where that comes from, right? Traditionally, this program was funded through urban renewal. Okay, so now we're proposing to bring this forward under a city program rather than urban renewal. And I think the other thing I would point out, I'm sure you're aware, using city funds, so city general funds, and then targeting just the urban renewal boundary. We can certainly do that. We target programs for certain areas of the city all the time, but I just wanted to point that out as well coming to this. So really, just some things James and I were talking about as we were putting this together for you tonight. And those are really the things outstanding, unless you've identified other things based on what we've provided. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to James and he can give the presentation, then we can have discussion.
Thank you, City Manager. This feels like old COVID days.
No, don't say that. Don't say that.
So if you recall, we met last August 21st this year, and whereby we presented a revised draft, an initial revision of the program. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the second revision of this program. Now, the last time we talked, there was some good discussion around the table in maintenance and wholesale distribution businesses. You stated that commercial mixed use projects were preferred, but you would not single out or throw out single use projects. They would be accepted provided that they added some type of economic vitality and pedestrian traffic, and at least accomplish or meet 4 of the 5 goals in the program. You agreed that the funding would be set up as a loan, a forgivable loan program, and then you also concurred that you would accept the second position on a loan, a forgivable loan, provided that there was sufficient collateral. Nonprofits were eligible to participate in this program, provided that they agreed to pay property taxes and if they owned a building, and particularly if they had tenants. And so you seem to agree on that point. Applications will be reviewed and funded on a first come, first served basis. And then you said you agreed that the investor would receive 50% of the funding request after the loan review committee had approved the forgivable loan, and that the remaining 50% would come later after a certificate of occupancy had been issued. So those are the points that you seem to have agreed on along the way. And so therefore, we incorporated all of that in the existing program guidelines. So with that, I'll just open up the floor for any questions or comments.
Are there any questions? I had kept my notes from the last time where we made the changes, so I guess I anticipated getting a red line version, but I can see where we changed things. And let's see here. I marked it all up, but it's on my. Okay.
And everyone had the same chart that we did
Yes,
last time. So
Yeah, we didn't change the chart.
one thing I do want to point out is that the flow chart, the diagram, your diagram probably looks a little chewed up. Although my diagram is pretty clear to me, but I assure you that everything has been incorporated in the diagram as we discussed. It looks like a piece of it's been cut off, or it seems to be a little off in terms of what you're probably looking at. But that's simply I guess a design error in our system. But I'm looking at a perfectly good diagram.
So James, my question is under number 7, grant loan terms and conditions. I had made a note on the old document under number 5. I think it's the same one. This says the loan may be subordinate to other funding sources. And I wrote in my notes, we had it would not be. And then I wrote question mark. So I can't quite remember what we did there.
That was one of the topics that there was a great deal of discussion there, but in the final analysis, it appeared that everyone seemed to agree that a second position would suffice, provided that there is sufficient collateral. I think
Okay, someone else or us.
That someone that we would take a second position to someone else. But Commissioner Donald has his hand up.
Frank?
I don't agree with being in a subordinate position. And it's because the evaluation of assets is subjective. And if I look at a failed restaurant where the recovery was based on the sale of the equipment within it, I mean, that only yielded maybe 10% on the dollar. So I'm not in agreement with being in a subordinate position. That's my statement on that. I do have a question, if I'm reading the staff report correctly, because on page 3 of 4, it says that the funding will remain a collateralized loan. Every time to find that, that's about it's above options, about the 4th paragraph above the options.
I have that.
The funding will remain a collateralized loan with amortized monthly payments under the following conditions, and the project will not be completed within the time frame negotiated, and or the project has changed contrary to the development agreement. Am I misunderstanding that, or should be that the funding will not remain a collateralized loan? Because it looks like they're not fulfilling the terms of the agreement, the completion in a timely manner, or doing what the pledge was to do. So am I misreading it?
No, you're not misreading. I think it's just a nuance, another way of saying the same thing. But your thinking is correct. If the project is not completed within the time frame, if it's not there, and if it's contrary to the development agreement, then it would remain a loan.
What would the option be if they weren't to remain alone?
If they meet the conditions of the agreement as well as the time, then it's essentially a grant.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the ability to recoup the funds if they fail to perform.
Is there a time period expressed for that action, or is it wide open?
No, the guidelines call for for the city to make the determination whether or not the project meets the development agreement, and so it's at the end. So at the end of the project, or near the end of the project, it's determined that the project is not or has complied with the terms of the agreement. And then the city manager would declare one way or the other that the project meets or does not meet the development agreement.
Yeah,
And at that point, and then at that point, it goes the appropriate way.
I see the following paragraph about the city manager's powers. Does he have the power to say this project appears that it will never be completed and to then no longer allow it to have the status of amortized monthly payments? I mean, who has the authority that says this project is never going to be completed and there needs to be a time, an agreed upon time to bring it to completion? Is that the city manager's power?
Well, that would all depend on, well, that position would always, would depend on the development agreement. As you know, every deal is different. And so the city manager would have the power to determine whether or not the project does or does not meet the current development agreement.
Yeah. I see that 2 paragraphs down. I just want to be clear on it.
So if the commission agrees to a development agreement that says C of O will be issued within, 2 years, right? And they don't meet the 2 years, right? All I'm doing is implementing what the agreement says. Either they met it or they didn't.
Right.
Right. There's some subjectivity, was the design exactly like what we proposed? There's probably a little bit of objectivity there, but I mean, I think there are other things that are going to be like, you need to meet these dates, right? So I could see a situation where we've dealt with this in the past, right? It's like, hey, your DDA, your development agreement's about to expire, or you haven't met, pulling building permits, and they'll come to the commission and say, I need another 90 days, right? I wouldn't make that call. I would be implementing the agreed upon development agreement. They would probably ask to come to you, the commission, and say, here's why I haven't met this timeline. Can we amend this? Would be, I imagine, what would happen.
I just wanted the city, in this case being the grantor, to be on firm ground if any action has to be taken. So the DDA would put us on, the clarity of the DDA would put us in that position.
Right. So I'd be implementing the DDA.
Yep. Okay, understood. Now, a government entity is not in a position to participate in this loan program, from what I read.
Correct.
Yeah. If they own a building,
Unless they want to pay
So
taxes.
Pardon me?
yeah, there you go.
Well,
Unless they want
if
to
they
pay
want to pay
property
taxes.
tax.
Well, I was just, not that we turned it into, just take the courthouse sample. Supposing we took possession of that and we wanted to be an active.
Use this program.
Yeah. It doesn't, from what I read it, I don't think we'd be an eligible participant.
I don't think that's the intent. Correct.
Well, I know it's not the intent. It's just I was trying to be versatile in its application.
All right. So in your paragraph, it's under the second sentence, it says the committee will accept a second collateral position if deemed necessary. They may obtain partial funding up to 50% to be dispersed upon, et cetera, et cetera. If the project does not come to fruition, dispersing funding will remain loan subject to the terms and conditions. And we had 150, 5 years, simple interest rate, loan collateralized at 80%, loan may be subordinated. Then we had under certain, did you take that out because you put it in the upper paragraph? Under certain circumstances, the loan may be shared or a second position with financial institutions. So that's been moved up into the paragraph.
Right. And I think part of this is we talked through a little bit. You could end up with a situation where a developer comes in and they have SD system development charges that they owe. So they could come in and ask to bankrupt those, which is allowed by state law as well as our code. So typically we take the first position on SDCs.
Right.
So we just wanted to make sure, we didn't end up in either the SDCs or the loans got to be second, and I would prefer the SDCs be first.
I would agree. I would not take a second on the SDCs. Do we have concurrence on that?
Yes.
Okay, everybody's saying yes. So do we need that in there so it's perfectly clear?
No, you say
Oh,
that,
I think that's why it was written that way.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, I'm good. Anything else?
I've got several things.
Okay, go ahead.
Off the bat, the first sentence says to make structural changes. I don't think
Refers to the page, the paragraph, and the section.
the first
Where are you?
sentence in the document on page
Okay.
1.
Okay.
Under
First
adaptive
sentence.
reuse, it says to make structural changes. I don't think, just take out the word structural. Structural means a particular thing.
Yeah. Yeah, structural, yeah.
It means they're going to redo the foundation, so it's not limited to that. So I just take that word out, I think.
Yeah, and it needs to say interior or exterior, because we changed down below where we had interior, it said internal, and it needed to be, they could use it for interior improvements under eligible expenses.
And then the question about if can they meet the time frame? Are we going to have the ability for them to request an extension? And I'm thinking maybe if they request an extension, do they have to pay interest only monthly payments on the amount that they've been that first 50% that they got, just as an incentive to keep it moving? I just, there's a lot of reasons why a project can be delayed, and sometimes it's city permit problems that happen. And I'd hate to see something sideways where there's a finish line, but it's past the agreement. So do we want to spell out something about possible extensions?
you could do that. You could do that, but you also can see where you can have so many variations that almost innumerable. And that's the challenge. But I guess the fundamental question is, under certain circumstances, that's maybe beyond their control, they could request an extension, and maybe we should say that, beyond their control.
I think that's okay. I think we're all nodding.
Next, under item number 3, general program description, the third paragraph, a little confused by what meant here. It says reassignment of the project or flipping is not permissible until project has obtained a certificate of occupancy. Then it says assignment or flipping of a project is permissible as long as the completed project adheres to the terms of the covenant. So what is it? Is it flippable or not?
What page is that, you say?
I'm looking on the 6-page document.
Sure.
Right.
The program 2.0. It's right at the top of page 2.
Okay.
Okay.
It's under item
Reassignment. Okay.
reassignment of the project is not permissible. And then the next sentence says reassignment or flipping is permissible.
Yeah, I question mark there.
So what are we meaning there?
Reassignment or flipping of a project is permissible as long as the project adheres to the terms of the existing covenant of the development agreement and or the city commission has approved the proposed new project. So it's the second sentence that holds water here. Not the first one. I should cross off the first one because
Okay, so the first sentence should go away.
Yeah.
Reassignment is permissible as long as it's still hitting the targets.
exactly.
And they have to meet all the loan requirements and background and all of that as well.
It's long. Yes, to answer your question, in the terms of the existing covenants are the same.
Okay, so that means we're gonna look into them before anything.
Right, but it is permitted. I mean, generally permitted to flip. You can probably imagine a lot of projects start off with a developer and they in that particular business, but they'll simply flip it to someone who's probably is.
And I don't particularly like that, unfortunately, because we have been burned by that in the past.
Yes, it might be true, but that is the nature of the business.
Yeah, the bus barn project where there's two two apartment complexes there. That is not what we were told was going to happen there. I'm also thinking it's 320 Warner Milne Road, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just saying, I'm feeling a little reluctant.
But the same, devil's advocate, the same thing could happen with the original proposal as well, original applicant. The fact that it flips doesn't make it any more risky. Maybe I don't know. As long as it complies with all of the terms in the original agreement, flipping it would be okay, but it would have to apply with everything.
Yeah, including their financial acumen and all of that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have a question about that particular one?
I think Commissioner O'Donnell.
Frank, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I lean towards the mayor's position on this. I'm curious if the loan is still not completely spent, if it's still in the process of being administered and the project is flipped. How do we handle that? Is that rolled over to the assuming party of the project, or what would happen? Or that's why at first, I think the first sentence was more about upon the completion, but now it could happen at any point in time.
No, the guidelines state in the guidelines that it can't be flipped until after certificate of occupancy.
Okay, all right. The other thing that we talked about was at what point do we make, how and who, and at what point do we make a determination that it's time to disperse the next 50% of the funds?
After certificate of occupancy.
Do you feel that they'll be able to attain a certificate of occupancy at the 50% completion level of a project?
Well, not at the, well.
That'll be the
50%
second 50%.
Yeah, of the loan. Yeah.
Oh, the second, okay. So they have to wait until the final certificate of occupancy until they get the final payment.
That's the hammer. Yep.
Okay, all right, I'm good with that, thanks.
Mike, what
Okay.
else?
Yeah, the next paragraph, and I don't know if it bothers anybody else, and it's no reflection against the city manager or who he might designate, but whenever I read sole discretion, that always scares me. I think there ought to be something in here that could be appealed to the city commission. Just to spell it out.
He's going to take his recommendation from the loan committee. If you want to put that in there.
Well, the committee's not involved at that point.
I know, but if they reassign it and come back, it has to go back and get reviewed by them, I think.
I wouldn't be opposed to Commissioner Mitchell's position with maybe a sentence that says subject to review by city commission.
I think, just to be clear, I think Commissioner Mitchell, you weren't talking about the loan terms or the loan element. You were talking about the project.
And what I'm talking about, this says that the city manager, in his or her sole discretion, will determine whether it is a loan or converts to a grant.
Right. Okay.
So that's after the 50%. Well, let's see.
That's the second 50% had not hit. We're still on the first 50%.
Right.
Right.
Right. I don't know if anybody, like I said, any time I read sole discretion, it panics me a little bit.
I think there needs to be some ability for a recommendation prior to making that decision.
I would agree with that.
I think Commissioner Morrow has his hand up.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. I actually put my hand right up as Commissioner Mitchell was getting into the same topic. This is one of the concerns I had. Again, not to question the judgment of the city manager, just I think as more of a review, an additional review step for us to make sure that we're getting what we want. I think think I'm going to save my comments. My main red flags with this project has the first one has already been addressed with the timeline, because on the one hand, there's wanting to make sure that we get our projects completed in a timely manner. But then, as Commissioner Mitchell got into, something that I was thinking about was the market that we found ourselves in suddenly in 2021, and the fact that many projects that we thought were going to be happening have been significantly delayed, and accounting for those events in the market, I think would be fair if there is a process for them to request that. And so I think that there was the consensus there. But really the big thing that I would be happy to bring up later, if now's not the time, is really just once we figure out all the decisions and all the policy points, it's the funding part that really hurts, because midway through this budget, it's hard for me to find myself supporting this coming out of the general fund. I strongly believe that if we had the opportunity to use urban renewal, that we should. Not to say that I'm against this this policy. I just have a really hard time trying to figure out how we find those extra dollars, when at the same time we're also talking about the potential of other mid-session budget allocations dealing with public safety and enforcement, as well as the potential of canine retirements. And so it's just the combination of these several conversations at once gives me a little heartburn midway through the budget.
My thoughts on that with urban renewal, I always remember the phrase, but for urban renewal's involvement, this wouldn't happen. And I'm not sure that that's the applicable criteria here. I understand where Commissioner Morrow's coming from. It's just thinking out loud.
I think you're correct on that. I think one of the things I wanted, well, Mike, why don't you continue, and I can say my comment for the end about the applicability and where we apply it. So,
Okay.
we're requesting to make a minor change on that sentence that it'll get before that determination is made, there'll be a touchback with the commission. Is that what you want?
We'll amend it with a recommendation that the city commissioner approves. We'll just bring it back.
Okay. All right. Next, Mike.
Okay, under project eligibility,
Okay.
the second paragraph, I got a little problem where it says it has to meet 4 goals. Because if you look at the 5 goals, I would assume a lot of it won't have anything to do with safety factor. I mean, they'd have to hit all 4 of the others.
Yeah.
And maybe they will. I mean, they're pretty generic. So
that was a discussion had by last time by Commissioner Smith, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that was you were talking about single use projects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember now. Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's what I have. That's what I have in my notes.
Next paragraph. I'm wondering, why are we limiting it to projects that are under $1 million? Somebody comes along with a $5 million project and needs a little boost. Don't we want that to happen?
Well, it's a matter of how much money you have.
Well, we're still talking $150,000.
Well,
regardless of the size of their project.
It's 15%. Yes, it's 15% of the project, up to a maximum of $150,000.
Right. So why wouldn't we want to spend $150,000 on a $2 million project or a $3 million project?
Oh, you could. You could. It's at your discretion. But I was just trying to trying to define what a small project was. Or small.
Like I said, why are we limiting it to small projects?
Well, let's get some comments from the others.
Right. That's why I brought it up.
Frank or Adam?
Thinking about the intent of the document and access to sources of funding, which are probably more limited for the small business entrepreneur than they are for major corporations. So I think although it favors a small entrepreneur, I just don't see that where Commissioner Mitchell is coming from. I'm just not sure that those applicants of a larger corporate status with access to funds and financing are more in need of this than others. And I mean, the project does have a limitation, and the project's resources could evaporate very quickly. So I'm not sure that I want to expand it, because I do want to favor, I mean, small businesses or startup businesses are in the most difficult position in terms of sources of funding and accomplishing things. So I'll go either way on it, but those are my thoughts on why I favor the smaller limitation.
Adam, you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of had a similar reaction to that as Commissioner O'Donnell. I think in keeping with the character of the district that we're focusing on, having that preference is where I would like to see that stay. And additionally, similar to what Commissioner O'Donnell said, I have a hard time seeing how if one of these larger projects needs $150,000 to complete the project, that they should be doing the project in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
Okay,
Convinced.
well,
I'm
I
cool.
agree with the other two, so I think we've got a consensus of 3. Okay.
I'm fine with it too. You got all 4.
That was a good
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, so next.
Just to simplify things under eligible expenses,
Mm-hmm.
I maybe would not include appraisal costs and engineering and architectural fees. The rest of those are more hard costs, and don't get into professional fees. So just a thought.
I don't have a problem with it, because when we did our storefront improvement grants, we helped pay for the architect to do the interior design, not design, but the interior work that somebody was doing tenant improvements. And you need to have a professional person do it. You can't just draw it on a napkin.
Oh, sorry. Was that, I think I heard remove appraisal cost and engineering and architectural fees.
Yeah, and I'm saying, no, I don't think so. Maybe appraisal, but I think the soft costs, in order to do something, you've got to have that information. And, I think it would help us if we allowed that. I think we did that when we did our storefront stuff too, back in the day when we had that program downtown.
I'd be in favor of removing the appraisal costs because of where they occur in the life of the project. The other ones I'm okay with leaving in.
Okay.
That
We have consensus on removing
that works for me.
appraisal costs. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Just a couple more.
Oh,
It's okay.
I'm a little confused. So take out appraisal costs? Is that the condition?
Yes, not an eligible expense.
Okay, on the next page under section 7,
Okay.
loan terms and conditions. Number 3, simple interest rate of 20% monthly. And I brought that up the last time, and I understand that we want to pay, but I also don't want the city to, it sounds like we're mafia loan sharks here, 2% a month.
Or student
But
loans.
the other concern, if somebody reads that, they're like, wow, this project might blow up and I'm getting on the hook for 20% a month. It might defeat somebody from applying. If we want to make it, 12 to even 18% a year, that would still give them an incentive to find another way where they can get funding for less than that. But 20% a month just really bothers me.
All right.
And then just one more comment and I'll stop.
It bothers me too.
When it gets into the financial information, we're talking about small projects now. And I know this came up, and remember, Griff, I think you were probably referring to the same program that I'm remembering, with in some of the requirements for financial information and even a business plan were beyond what out of the applicants had. And
Our code
advantage people it prevented people from making applications. And I'm not saying they shouldn't have a business plan. They should. But a lot of these small businesses, I just think they're not going to have that detailed of financial information or projections, and it might prevent us from getting some applications.
Okay, is that on page 3 or is that on page 4? Because I have,
That's on the last page.
okay, so under number
It's,
2 where it says
It's
financial support.
section, yeah, section 13, financial support forgivable.
Okay,
I'm just
yeah,
concerned if somebody, that this small project is going to be able to generate that kind of financial information. And I don't know, I'm not that, I'm not the expert in the field, but I don't want to deter somebody who doesn't have that. So just wanted to bring it up.
I think we're just trying to minimize concerns that have been raised about lack of performance in the past. And so, yeah, I mean, we're not a bank, right? So
right.
this is the part that always makes me nervous on even bankrupting, right? Somebody can just come in and bankrupt it, right? We don't check credit, we don't check income. We just take on the loan and lean the fee. But yeah, I guess just trying to find some, I think we're trying to provide some surety concerns about loans that have been or grants that have been given in the past and projects not performing.
Mike, are you talking about under number 2?
No, I'm talking under section. Well,
Section 2, where it says, are you talking about complete financial support request application?
Because that's where it is.
Where is this at?
On page 4.
I'm trying to find where Mike is. That's what I'm
on
trying to find.
section 13. It must be what page? It must be page 5, even though they all say page 1 for some reason on my printout.
Well, my section 13 is on page 3. It starts with number 1, complete program eligibility app. Then it goes to number 2,
What?
complete financial support request application. So I'm just trying to figure out where you are.
I think we're on 2 different documents because I'm looking at section 13.
Financial support.
Forgivable
loan.
Okay, all right, that's on page 5.
Bottom of page 5.
Bottom
Okay.
of 5 and top of 6.
Okay, credit score, ratio of debt to income, minimum debt service, value, collateral. Okay, which one of these were you? I don't see where it is that you're saying. That's why I'm asking you.
There were some other things in another spot also.
Is it in G, F, E? Where? I'm asking.
I think that may be partially reaction to previous programs where applicants couldn't even provide the simplest of financial statements.
You're talking about the COVID loan.
I'm talking about any number of loans where
The COVID grants, yeah. The COVID grants.
Yeah, I mean, if you can provide a profit and loss statement, or you didn't know if you were making money throughout the course of a business year or not, there's got to be just some minimum level of financial accountability that says this is a stable business and they have the wherewithal to participate in this. And
as I recall, a lot of people didn't know what an L was.
I'm sorry, that really wasn't the section that bothered me.
Okay.
It's on page 4.
All right, back to 4.
Section 8, application checklist.
Okay.
Item 2.
Okay, application process, application period, application checklist is, that's number 8 on page 3.
Right, okay. So
got
number 2 underneath there.
Okay, go to number, that's where I was.
Sorry.
And you said no.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so complete financial support request.
Financial pro forma of the project, documenting net operating income, return on investment, and cap. Past 2 years profit and loss statement of the project. Well, it might be a new project. There is no 2-year past 2 years. Current profit and loss statement of project. Again, might be a new project. Projected profit and loss for 24 months. Balance sheet for past and current year of operation. I just don't know how much of that information people are going to have.
Yeah, so you're talking about B, sub B, and sub C.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
Frank,
Frank,
let me get to Frank first.
Well, I
Frank, you're
didn't-
starting to look, you're doing the ghost thing, so you need to turn your light on in your room. You look like, looks like we're ready for Beetlejuice or something here.
I'll turn my light on in a moment.
Okay,
Part of this I don't object to because the past 2 years' profit and loss statement of this developer, are they a good business person? Have they consistently operated at a profit, or have they consistently lost money? So that's why I don't object to that. The current profit and loss statement somewhat reflect the first one I just talked about. That's our projection, being plans and projections and what you anticipate, and they can be blue sky. But the balance sheets for past and current year, I mean, those are almost like qualifying loan documents to me. So I'll leave it at that, but forgive me while I turn on a light and then we'll get some glare.
Adam, any thoughts?
I think the city manager's point about us not checking credit, about us not doing those other things that a typical lender would do, is a big deal. And so, while at the same time I empathize with the fact that sometimes these programs can be overly bureaucratic and have a lot of red tape, I think that it's also our fiduciary duty in this area to get as much information as possible.
Mr. Graham?
I think someone else had a comment.
Maybe part of the problem was where it says past 2 years profit and loss statement of project and current profit and loss statement of project. Well,
I don't think they mean the project. Maybe, are you
That's what it
meaning the
said.
applicant? I know, but I'm asking James, do you mean the applicant's business or?
Well, you actually both, because you can have a project and you have to have a budget for the project, sources and uses of the project. Fundamental. You've got to have some type of financial pro forma of the project, which is actually a budget for the proposed project, and that's also fundamental. I mean, a lot of this stuff is fundamental to making not only to making a deal, but also understanding the strength of the financial strength of the person you're dealing with. I mean, yes, there are going to be some people who won't have this information. Then again, that's probably a good thing. I mean, the program is not supposed to be available for everything and everyone under the sun. We want to strike an important balance so that one day you're not bidden really approving a project, and then it goes down because you didn't get sufficient information. And then what would be the answer then? So I think it's important to understand it. It's okay to go on to be conservative with taxpayers' money and make those kind of judgments based on some pretty standard things in the workplace, because there are people who just don't have that. That's true. Then that also is a reflection of their business acumen.
Well, you know the saying is that if they still have checks, then they must still have money.
I agree with Mr.
Adam?
Yeah, so that was that I was going to was the fact that while these requirements might favor those who have more of a track record, I think that's part of the intent, actually. And so I think I'm fine with that moving forward. And that's not to say that they cannot apply for other grants and loans that we offer, like the entrepreneurial opportunity loan and other things that are more suited for newer people and newer businesses. So I'll just leave it at that.
Frank? Frank?
It could, in fact, be a new endeavor. And at that point, the future projections in the business plan become of more importance than the current. But the current financial ability to recognize that you're a stable investment, that you have at least the wherewithal, it's almost a qualification piece. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually fine with it. I'm not trying to dissect it. I I understand what Mr. Graham was trying to do in constructing it, and I agree with it.
Mike, back to
Okay,
you.
okay, yeah, that's fine. I just think we need to be really clear about when we're asking for information about the applicant or the developer versus the information that we want on the project, because this is a little scrambled. It's asking for things about, 2-year history of the project. Well, the project hasn't happened yet.
Right.
We want a 2-year history of the developer, but we just need to be clear about, in the application, about where we're asking for information about the applicant versus the project. Otherwise, yeah, I'm fine. We'll see. And if it turns into a stumbling block, we can always come back.
C says it's the project developer, so it's not the business. It's the person that's going to do the project. That's under number C.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Commissioner Mitchell said. I mean, if someone has a history of failed projects, casinos and things like that, why would you make the loan to that person?
Casinos. Okay. All right.
Like in Atlantic City.
I don't think
On
we're
the,
ready for.
The interest, is there?
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike.
We could work with Matt and maybe it's something like prime plus a couple percent or something like that. Would that be more instead of 20?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
We don't want someone to say, I entered into this agreement and it's cheaper for me to take out a loan with the city, and I'm just not going to do what I agreed to, but I'm just going to collateralize this loan because it's cheaper than a bank. That was our fear, right? Like,
Yeah.
We get to 50%, and then they're like, yeah, we're just going to build what we want. We've got the loan. We'll just take it because it's cheaper than a bank, right? Our goal is not to be the first lending source.
I get that. And I think we can make it an unattractive lending source without 20% a month.
Without going gangster.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think we want to go gangster. Let's talk to Mr. Zuck and get his professional expertise.
All right.
We're going to revisit that. Okay. And anything else?
Just a one point. So this was designed to be painful.
To be what?
To be painful.
No, that's not our job as local government. We don't want to be a pain to people. We want to provide them with an opportunity, but we don't want to lend to every Dick, Tom, and Harry.
No, it was more of just if they don't perform.
Right.
Then you're going to go their butt,
if someone doesn't meet the conditions, we'd rather pay us back and take out a loan with a bank. That's what we were trying to do, was force non-compliance into payment and get us out.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do
with our money back.
We're going to send Sean and Alex over, and they're going to kick some butt, and that will take care of it.
Well, I agree with Mr. Bonkel. I mean,
Understood. We could work with something that, addresses trying to be a little bit above, lending standards.
Yes. There you go. Okay, that sounds good. All right. Anything else? All right. I think we have a consensus to move forward with with the revisions. Mr. Morrow had a concern about where is the money coming from, which we talked about. And what my idea was, and I'm just going to throw it out there in addition to your idea, was that maybe for this first go round or the first year of this, we narrow the focus and narrow the area by not taking all of the urban renewal district, but taking a smaller chunk to see as a trial to see how it goes. And then by then we will have worked our way into a budget situation that we can live with some more. I know we have contingency and we don't really want to tap that, but if you believe a certain person, we got money flying all over the place here that we're not utilizing.
I guess that was the question, right? I mean, do we do a smaller amount? Do we get this program ready and incorporate it in the next budget? Like, what was the expectation on rolling this thing out?
Well, my expectation it was going to roll out next year. with a, but I'm talking about a smaller,
Not
area that
budget
we-
year, you're talking to 2025. Was that right?
and like I said, narrowing the scope of the area instead of the entire urban renewal area, hone it down somewhat, so that would help keep it within maybe something that we can live with. I mean, if we made 2 loans, I don't think that's going to break the bank. But if we made 5 loans, I think that might be a problem.
Well, I mean, right now it's
That's the
cap,
300,000.
right? I think we got to set what, how much money are we going to put on the table as available for the last essentially 6 months of the fiscal year?
I'd say 300K. That would be 2 possible projects. Is my math correct?
I mean, that'd be the max.
Well,
Is that the max you can apply for is 150? Okay, I missed that, but okay. I don't want to limit the area because I want everybody to be able to avail themselves of the opportunity. But
So-
I'll listen to arguments either way.
Would you say for the trial to do 2 projects or make funds available for 2 projects?
Well,
We might get a project that only wants 50,000.
20,000, yeah.
It's a max. It's not a min.
A maximum, not a minimum. Yes.
Yeah.
well, that kind of brings up a good point. We said we're setting aside $300,000.
I just said that was I threw that out there.
Okay, no, that's what's in the document.
Right.
Yeah.
But 300,000 over what time period?
Right. You know,
1
I mean,
year?
I think I don't think we really got into the focus of how much money and where it's coming from, right? There were some ideas of, you know, what would be an incentive. So I think that's, you know, with 6 months left, you know, by the time we get this back approved out in the street, you know, you probably got 6 months left to the fiscal year. I guess that's where, you know, I don't have a good answer yet for, you know, what is the right size for this if it's truly going to come out of, you know, it's going to come out of the general fund at this point.
Well, I'm supportive of us moving forward with a minimum over the period. So we will be adopting the next budget in June of 26.
No, by July 5,
July 25.
30th,
Okay,
2025, hopefully.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying is we have 6 months left in this biennium.
Yeah, well, I think if we go ahead and try it, it gives our community the knowledge that we are trying something, that we're responding to the concerns that we heard, and that we're going to try it. If no one applies, then there's, you know, we don't have to worry about anything. But if somebody does, I think we ought to try.
So over what period of time does it remain open? Are you saying 6 months or until July of next year? What are we saying?
I guess, you know, I guess when I'm thinking about it, right, essentially we're going to go back and we're going to, you know, the commission is going to give us direction on how much money they want to put in for the next 6 months from the existing budget, right? And then we'll go through the budget process for the next biennial budget. This will be a line item that has to be prioritized and funded,
Right.
in the overall discussion of the general fund expenditures.
Right.
Well, I feel like the 300,000 number time period is fine by me, because supposing you 10 applications and, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 are fulfilled, but the others and say, you know, if the program was funded more heavily, these are worthy projects, then we can evaluate that in the next session.
So what do you think, Mike?
I guess to roll it out, I maybe this is a question we have to ask Mr. Zook to be sure, but given the fact that there's only, 7 months left in this fiscal year, and, well, 8, 8.
By the time
And we gotta roll this thing
rewrite
out
and
and-
everything.
Yeah, I think the chances of us getting more than 2 applications is really pretty slim. So the question would be, I guess, for Mr. Zook is, do we have 300,000 in the current budget? And then, as the mayor said, then it'll be a policy discussion at budget time. How many of these are we gonna
Try to fund. Exactly.
try to fund over the course of the next 2
Yeah.
years, next
Yes.
budget cycle?
Yeah. And that's part of, when we do our goal setting session, that will be part of that discussion as well. And then we go to the budget session. I thought I had mine.
They get the first half when? What's the trigger for the first half?
Up front.
They get the first half after loan is approved on review committee.
Okay, and you said that's going to take 30 to 40 days.
No, I didn't say that.
No, he didn't say
I
that.
said that in here.
No, I didn't say that because it has to get to loan review committee, and who knows how long it might take to get to that point. But the loan review committee would make that decision, and then they would prove it, and then they would get that first 50%.
Well, under application period, it does say 30 to 40 day review period.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Right. I see what you're
Okay.
saying.
Okay, so there goes another month. It's going to take us at least a month to come back with something that we can approve. This really isn't going to roll out until next fiscal year. The expenditure.
Right.
Probably. Unless somebody is just chomping at the bit right now, ready to go. So if to me, if Mr. Zook says it works, 300,000 the rest of this fiscal year works for me.
Okay. Well, I wish he was on the line, but I'm not going to text him at home and say, get on the commission meeting. So,
Well, I guess when I think about it, right, 300,000 would be 150,000 per fiscal year. I guess maybe 300 could go all at once, right? So let's just say we approve 300,000 for the next biennial, 25 through 27, right? 2 projects could come in right off the bat, and that would be all the money for the whole 2-year cycle, right? So, usually when we look at this, like 300,000, we think of it in 150 and 150, right? 150 for the first year, 150 for the second year. Maybe that's not the way we should do it.
I would agree.
So a little bit, I think, I'm nervous about $300,000. If we got to go in, we can look at it. I also not sure, next 6, realistically, by the time we get this back, get it approved, open applications, really, we've got 6 months probably for an application to try to come in this current fiscal year.
Well, I think you said, it's an up to. I was thinking that somebody might apply for the entire 150, but let's just say we allocate 150 for the rest of the fiscal year and we see where it goes. Somebody might apply for all of it. Somebody might apply for part of it, and it would still be worth it, I think. I think the discussions come in our goal setting session and then on what we want to try to accomplish. And, I was looking at a couple of the goals that deal with economic development and community prosperity. So I guess I would say let's get the comment. Let's get this in the final form in terms of review and have it at our next meeting, and we can get his opinion about 20% or prime plus two points or whatever. And we are, because I think we probably need to Matt.
And I know it would open a can of legal worms, but this really is, to me, a perfect project for urban renewal.
Of course it is.
That's a bigger discussion and opens that big can of legality that we've got to deal with someday.
Do we want to go and talk to the Court of Appeals and say, could you please make our decision or tell us to get out? just make a decision. One way they're just say you're not going to look at it or move on. They're holding us hostage, basically. So
Again,
well, let's come back with this. We're running up against our regular meeting. So we're already after time right now. So did we just make it as clear as mud?
No, I think we're good. No, I think we've
Okay.
got the corrections and we'll come back with the correct cleaned up
Okay.
copy and then we'll have a discussion about funding.
Yeah. And does anybody else want a red line or not?
And we'll get another chance when we bring it back. So.
Okay. Yeah. I just prefer when we're doing this, I prefer a clean copy and a red line copy.
I thought you meant more comments. Okay.
No. Just a red line. Cause like I said, I kept my notes from the line, which is why when I was reading it, I was able to go back and forth. So.
Okay, James,
all
when
right.
we make the changes, can we get a draft red line copy and then a clean copy as well?
Sure, of course.
Sure.
Okay.
The existing document was provided today.
Right. Yes. Right. Okay. All right. Being no further business, we are adjourned. And when do you want to come back for the city commission meeting? Do we have people lined up that are speaking, I presume?
Yeah, it's going to take us like 10 minutes to.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Let's
we
come
do.
back at 7:15. How about that? That gives us in case there's disaster with that system. And I just got a text from one of our citizens saying, I'm coming to the meeting. And I said, please don't, we're not there. So they can
Thank
come
you.
if they want. Okay, thank you.